as an individual, as a society. Let's be upbeat about our faith and what this country holds for us. It holds greater promise. All right? I believe that. Every morning when I wake up in the morning, I look myself in the mirror. I look at myself in the mirror, and then I prophesy. That's because I'm a Christian. Some of you are not. Some of different religion. But whatever you believe, have faith. Have that tenacity. Tenaciously believe that it will be better. That's how I overcome obstacles. Welcome. It's not a religious program. Don't get that wrong. It's Let's Talk, a news and current affairs program. Discusses news items that are made news in the past 24 hours. Audience participatory. At some point, we'll open up the phone lines for you to sink your teeth in whatever it is we're talking about every morning. My name is Cosby Jones, the radio chief, the descendant of E. Daniel the First. Welcome. This morning on Let's Talk, we'll be looking at two very important discussions or piece of news that has really elicited reactions all over, not just in Nigeria, all over the world. Type of government. Obasanjo declares that Western liberal democracy has failed in Africa. You didn't hear that. Type of government. Obasanjo declares that the Western liberal democracy has failed in Africa. No, it has failed. And then subsidy removal. Nigeria recording over 1 trillion naira monthly as savings. What do you do? Yes, you heard me. The Nigeria recording over 1 trillion naira monthly.
Good morning, Radio Chief. Good morning, River State and its environment. And welcome to the Let's Talk this morning.
All right, this morning I also have a politician, public affairs analyst, even though he hates being introduced as a politician. Public affairs analyst. He is okay. I'm not going to. Let me let the titles go. Mr. Something is with us this morning. Mr. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I think I don't know if we can find a new nomenclature.
Politicking.
No, maybe you can say peopletician, no problem. I'm for the people, always for the people.
That's a new one. That's a new
Good to be here, anyways.
Peopletician.
Good to be here. All right. Now, former President Olusegun Obasanjo yesterday declared that Western liberal democracy had failed in Africa because it was forced on the continent. The former president who stated this while delivering his keynote address at a high-level consultation on rethinking Western liberal democracy for Africa in Abeokuta, Ogun State, noted that the Western liberal democracy will never work as a system of government in Africa because it does not talk into the account and views of the majority of the people. Now, over all the people or the population, and these few people are representatives, only some of the people are not full representatives of all the people. Okay, so they are a representative of only some of the people, but not a representative of all of the people. Now, invariably, the majority of the people are wittingly or unwittingly kept out. Democracy, as we know it, is a collective agreement of a people to form and abide by rules and regulation that holds them as a state. Something in the middle. Has democracy failed in Africa?
Well, I would rather say that Africans have failed in the practice of democracy. Democracy, you wouldn't say has failed in Africa because democracy is a principle, and if it is properly applied, it will serve the people in the measure it ought to. But where it is wrongly applied, of course, the result would always be the negative. So democracy is a principle that is applicable in any part of the world. And every developed nation that has practiced democracy is reaping the dividends of practicing democracy.
Is it? I want you to also expound and think in the line of democracy not feeding to our cultures and tradition. We have a system of life, a way of life in Africa, and might not really be, if we apply all of those systems fully, democracy really might not be for us.
I do not agree with the former president on that. To say that democracy was forced on us would be. I don't agree with the former president, because he had served as a military president of this country. He has also served as the democratically elected president of Nigeria. And you can tell that he appreciated being a democratically elected president. At the time he enjoyed being the president of the country. He had all the powers, he had the liberties given to him by the constitution, of course, as being practiced in democracy, to be able to serve and meet the needs of the people. And President Olusegun Obasanjo served for 8 years as the one cannot and couldn't have been, properly managed by a family where leadership comes by lineage.
We had peace,
No,
enduring peace.
No.
Practicing what you felt was against the law of nature, and which is that people were not equally represented.
Where a family rules.
In this country,
Yes.
I have grown to a point where I've seen a man become governor, and at the end of the day, the son becomes governor.
Yes.
The sister.
Which is not in the chains of a monarchical system. And whether we like it or not, democracy evolves. And we so envy the kind of development that has taken place
in the world, however you look at it. And then the civilization had overtaken the whole world, which is you can stay in Bira, you can stay in Alo, you can stay in Ishikwato and talk to someone in the US. So we see these things, we desire them. All right? So enough to about that's the what I mean an opinion. Maybe our minds are not trained enough to imbibe all of the tenets of the because you can't practice democracy and live up tenets, rules and regulation. All right? Institutions were abused,
Not me.
Maggie, and you'll be jailed for 20 years. So the system is broken. No checks and balances. In the past, when we were growing up, if you steal my fowl, then we call it a cake. I'll go to a juju and you will bring it. It will take, even though that's not what I'm preaching here. I'm painting a picture for us. So we've not grown, regardless of how developed the world is at the moment. Maybe we've not grown to a level where we appreciate the tenets, we appreciate democracy as it is and start practicing it truly. Maybe we've not built institution that will make democracy constructed.
So I was going to get there. So the instance I'm giving is that car can function in the UK and it can function in Nigeria. Now, if it does not function optimally in Nigeria, it is not because we have a weather problem. It is because we've not created that environment that is needed for that car to be fully explored. Now, so you wouldn't say the car is the problem. You would rather say we here and our environment is the problem.
True.
Now,
so
democracy.
we're not coming to a compromise. We're coming to a time. Go.
Yes, democracy is a principle practiced and has succeeded in several countries of the world.
We don't have any doubt about it.
Now, if it has not worked in Nigeria, it is not right to say that it was forced on us. That's why it's not working. It is not right to say that the practice of democracy is not in tandem with our cultural practices. Because whether you like it or not, Africa is because we have refused to drop our traditional cultural practices and behavior to add. So what it means is that you're trying to put a new wine in an old bottle. That is where the problem is.
All right.
And until we change this mindset and begin to adjust to the realities that democracy offers us, we'll continue to see the non-workability of democracy until we begin to advance towards, for instance, I want to use, you cannot be using an iPhone 14 the way you would use a Nokia Touch. All right, there are two different build-ups. If you want the iPhone 14 to function the way the first model of Techno should function, you would not get the benefit of the iPhone. That's what's happening here. So Africa has refused to practice democracy by full. And I'll give you an instance. When we're supposed to have elections, we say democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. All right? Now, in our electoral practices, what do we get in this democracy? We refuse the government to be of the people. We refuse the government to be by the people. And so the government cannot be for the people. That's the problem here. So when we want to do elections, you refuse the people to vote. It is not democracy that does not allow people to vote. It is our poor practice of democracy that denies people, disenfranchises people from voting or being voted for. And as a result, you see that...
Is a poor practice deliberate?
Yes, it is. It is not a function of poor knowledge. It is a function of our greed and primitivity. And that is why we cannot practice democracy fully, because everybody wants to cut corners. Everybody wants to get into power by illegal means. And I feel that it is the consequence of our long practiced monarchical system.
Maybe not everybody.
Yes, a broad majority in the system. And that forms a greater percentage.
Thank you, the radio chief. And before I lend my voice to that, I want to say congratulations to the men on the celebration of Men's Day, and advise that, men button a lot of things, that we, from you, the radio chief, and all the men around, that we should learn how to speak out, speak to our fellow men, even when the going is tough. There is someone we can speak to. Because you could see the statistics they wrote out in men's suicide attempts and all that. So, Radio Chief, this discourse on Obasanjo and democracy, liberal and the one he called Afro-democracy, it's really unfortunate that we are discussing it on Let's Talk. How I wish it has come during the parliament, because of the latitude of time we don't have. And here in Let's Talk, our time is regimented, so we wouldn't go into the nitty-gritty of it, but at least let our listeners, as we're here to educate them, know where the former president is coming from. In as much as I don't agree with him totally, and in as much as I also tend to agree with him, because why my disagreement with him is that he has been in the saddle. And we also read, we that are philosophical and political students, like the Julius Nyareres of this world, the Zik of Africa and all that, had tried to fashion a pattern of democracy or rule that can be favorable to Africa and Africans. Because of our culture, because of who we are, because of our own environment, because if he had gone out of this country, you find out that God, structures people according to their geographical locations. And if you want to dictate an African man, is maybe through facial or tribal marks. But if you go across and meet so many whites, when you begin to interface with them, you find out that you can only differentiate them from their hairdo. Each country, each nation have the pattern of their hairdo, no matter how closely they are related. Even when you see a Pakistani and an Indian, you see the difference.
What are those peculiarities that have made the liberal democracy fail in Africa?
Yes, it has failed in Africa because, one, our culture is totally different. The way, when man was made, the mind of man was not a tabula rasa. There is something God infused in man that as you develop, your innate ability develops with you. Who you are occurs to you. That's why no matter where you're born, as you are growing to maturity, you begin to see.
So you are saying the culture of Africa.
The culture of Africa and that of the liberal democracy, it is not in tandem at all.
Do you know that the culture in the United States of America and that of the one in China and Europe are not the same? Yet democracy had flourished in 3 of these continents that I just mentioned.
But I'm coming there. I will tell you how it differs, because those other countries have been able to find out the one that works for them. When you call democracy, remember that democracy is a way of governance.
Yes.
It's a way of governance and is a way of administrative convenience that fits a particular people in their particular way of life. It is just like you're describing culture and socialism. So when you say Obasanjo saying that that liberal democracy is not working in Africa, he's not far from the truth. Because when you talk about liberal democracy, before Obasanjo is speaking it now because his words are no longer law. He can only be on the advisory line. He cannot say that he didn't have the opportunity. But can you utter those liberal democracy tenets now in Africa when people are enjoying it, people are gaining from it? Because
I'm yet to get that feeling,
yes,
that point that has made democracy. I mean, that culture and tradition, the peculiarities that has made democracy
the liberal one not to work in Africa,
not fail in Africa. I need to get 1 point, 2 points. Maybe we don't listen to elders. Maybe what is gerontocratic? What are the points? Because when I see Onyema, you have stayed in Malaysia. I see a human being. You went into Malaysia. You adapted. You mixed up with the culture. So that's civilization. So I'm getting to see. So we have humans that had evolved from the primitive Africans to more developed Africans. So if we keep talking about our culture, peculiarities, I want to find out those peculiarities that have made democracy fail.
Those peculiarities is inherent. Let me tell you. Before the Europeans came to Africa, Africa has been existing, and African has a pattern of governance and lifestyle. They didn't meet Africans living in the cave. They did not come to Africa and begin to manufacture and create human beings. Africans have their own way of life. Okay. They have the way they have like culture, like every before the Europeans came. They have their own way of life, and they have their own mindset of coming to Africa. Don't forget that Walter Rodney said that the Europeans underdeveloped Africa, and at the same time they were developing Europe. They did not only come to underdevelop Africa, they sat in Berlin in 1884 and find out that Africa is where the pains of your brother, not sympathy now, but empathizing where it is necessary. This is the African man. You understand? So when you come to during what Obasanjo is saying predates to the colonial era. When they came in and they were able to see that Africans were organized. There are some areas they were not able to penetrate easily because of the solid foundation and the organized structure of the governance in that particular area.
I was listening intently. I was waiting for that point that has made the peculiarities that has rebuffed, that have pushed democracy away from us. For us not to, is it the understanding? Is it because when you make statements like democracy, liberal democracy has failed in Africa, there must be a reason it failed. And he says our peculiarities. I've read so many posts on social media, and no one seemed to have told me or outlined those peculiarities that has made Africa fail. But let's look at Obasanjo now as a former president. At what point did he realize that democracy was not working for Africa? Like Dumezo mentioned, he was a military head of state, and then he was a democratically elected leader. He didn't know that democracy was not working for Africa. He didn't fashion a roadmap into the Afro-democracy that he's pitching now. He didn't do that. And a few years, at what point did you think he realized?
See, the radio chief, Obasanjo enjoyed the status quo. He enjoyed, like Bro Sam said, he enjoyed the status quo, and that is why they cannot alterate what the liberal democracy is giving to them. because you know that in Africa we have the monarchic, as he has said, and we also have the Republicans, like the Igbos, where everybody comes around and takes the collective decision. Nobody will lord it over others. But there, in the liberal democracy, it is not like that. It is even rather very unfortunate in Nigeria that the majority, the democracy is described as the liberal democracy now. It's described as the government of the people, by the people and for the people. But in Nigeria, the few, it is now the minority that elects the rulers for the majority. Because if you go by the number of voters that INEC told us prior to the election that registered for their voters card, and the population, less than 14 million or 15 million Nigerians that voted. So you look at it, that the minority, even the off-season election that has happened, you see somebody winning election. I could remember during the last tenure of the former Sokoto State Governor, Aminu Tambowa, he only won his opponent of the APC with 300 vote margin. Is that a democracy? Is that the majority speaking for the minority? Or the minority now speaking for so these are all the things that Obasanjo have factored into place and know that this is a hegemony. This is rather impeding development in Africa.
Should we blame that on democracy, or should we blame that on ourselves?
No, we should blame that on the democracy that is forced on us, because the Europeans came with their own ideology, but when they came here, they refused to rule with the existing ideology and go by the tenets of the African man. You could see the fallout of all the things we read on the social media and in the print media, or what happened after the recent coup in Niger, where the French, which is the colonial masters of that particular country, have the first of right refusal before you had a lot of things. So how can you come to colonize somebody and at the end of the day you are still holding the person hostage?
All right.
You know, and they
come to you. Statements like this from other statesmen like Obasanjo, does it not sound dangerous? Is this not enough to spark off something in our society? I mean, if you look at the upheaval in so many countries now, close to us is Niger Republic. We have Burkina Faso, we have Mali, and a few other African countries. Is this not a dangerous comment?
Well, it is dangerous in the sense that if people begin to imbue this kind of perception, it is dangerous to how we react to democracy that we, so to speak, practice. But as much as this is someone who had been a public figure, his statement does not hold as much water because it is clearly his opinion. As much as he is not speaking from the point of authority as the president, it wouldn't matter much. Some persons will just discard it. In fact, some persons will say, look, the former president is getting old, so he's talking as an old man. You know, but let me say this. I totally disagree that democracy was forced on us. That's why it's not working. And I'll give you an instance. You know, the use of phone didn't start from Africa or Nigeria. It started from somewhere in the West. And, you know, those early days we had Trion, those kind of phones, Trion. It trended. And after they used it, it was exported. In fact, within time of use, exported down to Africa. And we started appreciating it because it made life easy. These are dividends of this kind of democracy. Now, when they built up to using the kind of sophisticated phones there are now, we appreciated it. It's working there, it's working here. It has made life easy. You know, but the problem is that we want to be using a modern phone like an older phone that we started using. And that's the problem here. So, democracy offers everything good. When we talk about African enjoying liberalism, it's not the whites that will teach you how to enjoy what they have given to you. Listen, democracy has clear terms and definition. Clear terms and definition. And it's like a pack offered you of gifts that has varieties.
As a way of finalizing this discussion, because we're already pressed for time, would you welcome this democracy with little tweakings here and there